call through the app. But then, it's not some 7th grade kid like texting you at 3 a.m. being like, Mr. Bravo. Because I would rather die than have a text message like
You always know that Marcus is a drug dealer in his former life.
I no comment. I don't do drugs.
That's great.
Recruitment understandable. So we're gonna go rapid fire through this. What can you do to get students? Maintain a presence at orientation and club rush. So these are things that happen at the beginning of the year. Get into contact with booster organizations and like the band parents and stuff like that in advance of the school year, whether that's in the summer or the semester prior. Events like fairs and festivals. So like sometimes, especially elementary and upper elementary level, they'll throw like the Hobbs Elementary School Club Fair or like the whatever, like the circus, quote unquote. And like go to those things. Bring some of your good high schoolers and like do like just a brass quintet or a string quartet, or have your jam band come and like rock out to Green Day. Something that you're showing that you have a presence, showing off to all the young kids that might want to do that when they get to that grade, showing off to all the parents who have kids in that grade and their like little siblings at the elementary level. It's like, yeah, woohoo. All right, parades, sports events. Obviously, if you're doing pep or marching, you're already there. Instrument petting zoos, which we're gonna get to in a second. Be kind, be outgoing, be welcoming, be accepting all around campus all the time. Just because a kid is in your band doesn't mean they might not be in your band, especially if you have some kind of general music course, whether it's required or not. What can you do to keep students? You need, and this is kind of echoing what, and I'm so sorry, is it Dr. Leaner or Lerner? Leeser, I'm so sorry, Dr. Leeser. Kind of to echo what she said, consistency. If you're gonna do something, you have to do it for everyone, whether that's good things like, hey, everyone in here gets a donut except for Christian. Like, or it's something bad where, hey, I'm sorry, you're just writing my line of sight over there. Or it's like, hey, everybody, you're doing a great job. Christian, I hate you. Christian, I hate you. Christian, get out of here. Like, stuff like that. Just, you don't want to always be going towards one kid, especially if they're like not actually doing something that bad and you're just pre-annoyed with them. Try not to be pre-annoyed with kids. It's sad for them. Accountability, if you say you're gonna do something, then do it. Follow through. And humility, if you do something wrong, own it. That is the biggest tip that I ever got from anybody. And it was kind of like in a complimentary sort of way, because I totally screwed up something. I was doing St. Paul's suite, just strings, during my practicum at the high school level. I totally screwed up. Like I was doing wrong page, wrong tempo, wrong everything, wrong times, and I was doing terribly. I was like, I am so sorry, my bad, let's try it again from the top, got myself together and did it. And my supervising professor was like, hey, good job. Do that anytime you mess up, because if they know that one, it's okay to mess up, they'll be fine with messing up. And two, they know that you're gonna admit it when you're wrong, like then they know that they can trust you to admit when you're wrong and not just be like, hey, that was your fault, Chris. Stuff like that. The rest will fall into place if you are a teacher that they trust and respect. Instrument petting zoos. Woo! So, what is it? I'm sure you probably already know a little bit of this, but high school and even some junior high players or they don't necessarily volunteer, sometimes they're voluntold, but they come and help you demonstrate instruments sometime after school. You can work with your students, obviously. You can work with some parent volunteers to make sure that they are like bringing these kids where they need to go. And typically, I would work with like a local music shop to bring these instruments and advertise the fact like, hey, $5 a month rentals and it's rent to own or something like that, whatever their deal is. So, students can have this stuff accessibly. Do you have a question about this? Fast.
Yes. So my district, when we did our instrument petting zoos, when I was in 6th grade, I had to audition to do percussion, and it was like basically to see if you can keep beat in time.
Okay.
Would you do that? Since like maybe like one instrument might be a bit more built for someone you may already have.
A lot of places do that. It's pretty standard, and then a lot of places won't let anybody do percussion their first year. They make them play something that's their first year.
Yeah.
I don't like that necessarily, but you do want to do some kind of fling something. I don't want to call it a test, but just like you try them out like a mouthpiece for all the other instruments.
Yeah.
You want to try them out to see if they can keep time, because everybody wants to play drums.
Exactly.
You can't have, like, literally the 8th grade band at Athens right now is, who goes into service there? It's like 7, 9 percussion.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
I didn't know it was an option. And it's like 17 people total, and 7 which is not how it started. Just throw that out there, but just, you don't want that.
Yeah, and I would say, yeah, have some kind of vetting process. Ideologically, I am kind of the school of thought, like, use your best judgment. If a kid is like not having those skills, like if they seem like they actually truly want to do it and they want to learn and they're willing to learn and take home their bell kit and practice pad and stuff and like actually practice, then I would say maybe be willing to have that be a possibility. But I again, just be conscientious in your
You have
vetting
a lot
process.
of sway when they're trying instruments,
Yeah.
because you can make them feel good about a certain instrument.
Mhm.
Like, oh yeah, you're a natural at this.
Exactly.
You know?
Wow, you almost played Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on the cello, even though it's the
Exactly.
first
So-
two strings.
Yeah.
Anyways, yes, answer your question kind of, hopefully yes,
Yes.
we're moving on. When? Best to do this in the spring semester prior to the fall that you start teaching, or in the summer if you're available, like right before the semester starts. If you can be in the area of your new gig, and this kind of goes back to what Chastity was saying, if you can be in the area of your new gig before the end of the previous school year, and the outgoing teacher is okay with it, make sure that that is like priority number one. If your outgoing teacher is like getting fired because they're terrible and they're trying to burn the whole place down, essentially, maybe don't be like, hey, I just wanted to do something to help take your job. They might not appreciate that. But if your outgoing teacher is like, just retiring or just is going on to continue their education or something like that, like maybe they'll be willing to give you that mentorship if you reach out. So just consider those things. I might speak with the principal or secretary or something before that. Switching and doubling instruments, this first bit is just kind of a catch-all sort of thing. So why would you switch and double? Kind of the obvious, but pieces might require diverse instrumentation. My high school band only had 15 members in it, and we had a lot of things where there was like an F horn, like integral part. You could transpose that and give it to a trumpet player. You could have somebody who's willing and wanting to learn the F horn. Like there's kinds of different possibilities. Be open, be willing, all the things. Marching and pep band already requires a lot of this. Haley, do you tend to march your bassoon?
Yeah, no.
That's what I thought. And so there are a lot of different things where you'll learn a new instrument for marching or pep. Serious music students that are planning to go into the profession kind of get a head start by doing this. You can also recommend them to join one of the other ensembles. So if they're like your band kid, you can recommend that they join choir to build their oral skills, or maybe join orchestra to build their alto clef reading, whatever. Gifted and talented students receiving enrichment from being like, hey, you're already a great enough clarinet player, why don't you also learn the saxophone or the oboe or something? Maybe a musical pit. I know that this is more towards the professional level, but oftentimes you'll be required to just double like 6 or 7 instruments, and so for some reason that's what you have, then that's what you have to do. Obviously there's ways to accommodate that, but some common doublings, and we don't have to go through all of this, but just kind of the obvious again. Instruments that are pretty similar to each other are pretty similar to each other. Obviously F horn is already going to be, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, already going to be learning mellophone typically. Trumpet and baritone treble clef, I love to mix those people up and make them do the things that I need them to do. Obviously guitar and bass guitar. Violin go is a really common doubling. Violin bass is actually a pretty common doubling too. You just remind them that, hey, by the way, your strings are backwards. Flute and sousaphone / tuba, especially for marching, if you're like in a situation where you just need more power on your low end, because they have that breath control, they are pretty darn good either way, yes.
It's only beneficial for the air support.
That is
Everything
true.
else, like embouchure
It
wise
is
and
different.
changing partials
Very
is
different.
completely different.
I've
It's
had
true.
a lot of success transferring flutes over to tuba though. One of the tuba players actually in the flute band tonight, was a flute player, and she was not a good flute player. I will throw that out there. But does a good job on tuba, so, yeah.
And that kind of goes into my next thing. So, who should you maybe choose? Maybe not the best player in your section. You don't want your star flute player to now be your second best tuba player. Maybe you want to keep your star flute player as being your star flute player, and have maybe your second or third best flute player now be wherever they need to be. And they can still play their main instrument, but also just happen to have them double. Someone with time and motivation to practice, so maybe not the kid who, and I don't know why I looked over here, but we were just having that conversation about the vetting people with the audition process. Maybe not the person who like just shows up and it's clear that they haven't practiced at all, ever. Maybe somebody who it's clear that they practice and they're very motivated and they have the time to do that. Students that are good at reading music and are somewhat independent learners, they can kind of problem solve. Instruments with similar clef and technique, so again, treble clef to treble clef, it's kind of same transposition sort of things. Reeds, double reeds, air control, playing position, which is why violin viola is so common, bass guitar with normal guitar, stuff like that. I believe that it can and kind of should start as young as 8th grade, that's just my opinion. I may be wrong, there are other schools of thought, don't take that as the law. We're going fast. Here's the beginning of the year. So what do you need? This is, again, going back to Dr. Leeser's, right? Sweet. Dr. Leeser's presentation. So compile a list of essentials that are not provided by your district. My district was willing to provide me any and all office supplies I needed ever. There was no like boundary on that. They're like, if it falls into the category of something I can get at Office Max, you can have it as much as you want whenever you want. So like rubber bands and like the little alligator clip, or not alligator clips, the little, what am I talking about? The paper, the binder clips, thank you. Binder clips, markers, pens, pencils, the big giant sheets of paper, anything I wanted to print, like whatever you needed to do, it was provided. Some districts that may not be the case, you may need to pay for every single thing you print yourself, which is why you may want to go digital, kind of like Dr. Leeser was saying. Things that probably won't be provided by the district, but you have to budget in at the beginning of the year. Reeds, valves/slide oils, cork/slide grease, strings, rosin, folders. If you're requiring them to wear a certain uniform that they are not required to buy because of whatever the district situation that you're in, make sure that you have enough of those in enough various sizes that they will fit your students. And make sure that they're not like moth-eaten and falling apart. Office type supplies, again, if they're not provided by your district, get them provided. Decorations, these may be things that you want instead. So again, like I said, decorations, things that are like posters and other visuals, new music that isn't in the library already. Like if you're like, oh hey, you know, back in whatever year that was, High Hopes by Panic at the Disco just came out and they have a marching band version. I want that. You might look into getting that for your marching season. Things for marching pep band like ramps or carts or flags or guard uniforms, stuff like that. And again, office type things that are more convenience than necessary. So like maybe you don't need your own like giant paper slicer thing, etc. What does a lesson look like in your space? And so this is an important thing to be thinking about. Where will the objectives be? Are they going to be on a digital board like this? Are they going to be on a whiteboard? Are they going to be like plastered to your forehead? What is it going to look like? Do you have an easy way to check the time? Do you always have to look behind you? Do you always have to look at your computer? Are you going to have a little clock on your stand? What is that going to look like for your own pacing? Make sure that you don't, or you can also even have alarms set on like the digital board if you need to. Whatever's going to keep your pacing and respect your students' time as well as your own. Is there easy access from anywhere in the room to the podium/piano, depending on what kind of classroom you're in? Is there, like I said in my last presentation, path straight down to percussion? We don't want more timpani cheeseburger situations. Access to cubbies and lockers. Where will the backpacks and coats be? And then I would super advise this isn't something that I did at the beginning of the year. This is something that I did after the winter break, which I wish I had done at the beginning of the year. Is just do a practice lesson, pretty much of your whole day, and just have someone that you care about or who cares about you come in and pretend to be your student, or even just like run through the whole thing with your imaginary students and be like, okay, here's the thing, here's where this goes. And if you get halfway through your lesson, you're like, oh crap, maybe I should have put all of the like Orff marimbas out before the lesson started. Things like that that you learn from that then don't happen while you're teaching and have to figure out how to tell like 45 fourth graders to be like, no, just wait 5 more minutes for me to get this thing out. Setting yourself up for success, examine the curriculum and scope and sequence. Make sure you have those big idea goals, like, hey, what do I want them to learn by this point, by this point, by this point? And then have those weekly, daily plans. Make sure that you have at least your first week ready, because that first week is going to fly by. I would say maybe prep for like 2 weeks or a month or something, just so that when you get to your house at the end of day 1 and you don't remember your own name or how you got home, you're like, oh, I still know what I'm doing tomorrow. I don't have to spend 4 hours typing up lesson plans. And that kind of goes into my next thing. Have an end of day / week routine for yourself, especially if you're changing buildings. That's something that I wish that I had known in my first year because I was going between 2 buildings. And so my high school classroom was like a tornado had gone through. It was a mess. It was horrible. It was awful. I even shared it with another teacher, and she had her own things going on. But she wasn't able to clean it up. I wasn't able to clean it up. So I would get there in the mornings and be like frantically trying to pack things and put things and reset the classroom, and it just wasn't working out. So make sure that you have these routines ready. And leave work at work. Give yourself time to decompress at home. That is kind of work-life balance from the other week, but it is so important to go home and be at home and have the home things be there. So there's an article that I put into Blackboard called The Basis of First Year Teaching. It's by Ellen Moore. Really great article. We're gonna just kind of blitz through it super fast, but you can read it on your own. It's just 2 pages. But your first year kind of starts with the anticipation phase. This is before the beginning of the school year. And you're like, hey, I'm really excited and also terrified. What if I don't know what I'm doing? You do. Second bit is survival phase, and that typically is that first, like I said, first month. That's why you want to be prepared a little bit in advance. And so, like you'll know that you're gonna be busy. You expect to be busy. You expect it'll be somewhat like student teaching or somewhat like your collegiate life, but it's a lot. It is gonna be hard. Make sure that you make time for yourself. Drink water, sleep, eat food, stuff like that. Again, struggling to keep your heads above water, I would advise you not to try to spend 70 hours a week on schoolwork if you possibly can. That's why a lot of that pre-planning comes into play before the semester starts, setting yourself up for success. Some days, like some weeks you'll have to. Some weeks are concert weeks, plus marching band weeks, plus whatever weeks. Sometimes you'll have to do it. Try not to make it every week. Then the disillusionment phase kind of happens. You can see this handy little chart. I don't know if the mouse is able to get this. Handy little chart here. So as you kind of go through the year and we get into this like winter seasonal depression slump here, you get this disillusionment, and you're like, hey, maybe I hate teaching and I'm not cut out to do this kind of thing. You are, if you want to be, but like, and that's the whole point of your preparation here is that you're not going to get out of here with a degree if you're not prepared to do it. You can do it if you want to. If you decide that you don't want to, try to wait until at least this next phase here before you decide that you don't want to. But that's a different thing. So then rejuvenation happens usually in January, and it actually did happen like right then to me. I made it through the first 2 weeks coming back from from winter break, and I was like, I am still hating everything. Yes, I see that, thank you. I still am like, oh man, I wish I was not teaching right now. And then I went to WMEA, and I was like, oh, I have ideas. Now I'm excited about this stuff again. So again, be excited, they'll be excited, and then your problems will be lesser. Reflection phase, this happens kind of towards the end. You're like, man, I could have done so much better, but I also did some things kind of good. Here's some things I want to do next. Read that on your own if you'd like to. And so to tie all of this up is you gather supplies, whether that's the needs, whether that's the wants, whether that's the like material stuff or whatever else. Make yourself a plan so that you have all the things that you need well in advance of needing them. Give yourself time, especially once you're actually in your teaching. That means like time to get better. That also means time to breathe and relax. Give yourself grace, because you're not going to get it all right the first time. And trust yourself. Please trust yourself. Again, you will not get out of this program with a degree if you are not prepared to be teaching. You will not get to that point if you're not ready for it. And so if you're there and you're already in this job, you're ready for it. Okay? I think that might be my last slide. Yeah, it is. Questions? Sorry I went so fast. If you want me to go back and like refresh some things, I'm happy to. I'm trying to rapid fire. Caleb.
How did like you personally push yourself through the wow, this is the worst thing I've ever done phase?
Yeah, and so actually, you know, I to be completely like vulnerable, I kind of wanted to talk about this during the work-life balance / mental health week that we had or whatever it was. But like, it was tough. It was really probably, at least since high school, the darkest my own mind had ever been. I was, and like again, I just want to be very vulnerable with you. I had a lot of stuff kind of hit the fan all at once. I had like a death in the family. I had some like real strains on a lot of my personal relationships. And then to top it all off, then I have these classes where everyone, all they're looking forward to is winter break. They don't care what I'm telling them. They don't care about these things. I had never done a beginning of the year concert. I had only done end of the year concerts. So I didn't know how to structure things. I had a really, really terrible time of doing that. My voice actually gave out because my classroom management was severely lacking, and so by the end of the year, I think all my stress had just gathered up right before that concert, and I had shot my voice yelling at a bunch of fifth graders to try to get them to calm down, because I had all the fourth and fifth graders together so that we could rehearse the stuff for the concert, and so I didn't have a voice for the concert, and our mics were totally sabotaged because a bunch of high schoolers took them for a parade. So we had no mics, I had no voice, concert went terribly because our sound system wasn't working either. I was like, man, I just am not meant to be a music teacher. Like I should just quit. I'm gonna go work at a state park or something like that. Like I was convinced that was the end of my career. And what really pushed me through that one was just taking time and like what is the word I'm looking for? Decompressing and realizing that one, my career isn't the measure of who I am. It can be what contributes to who I am, and it can be something that's a part of my identity. It can be something that gives me some meaning and value and purpose, but it can't be all of my meaning and value and purpose. And so finding things that really mattered and really meant something to me, whether that's hobbies, whether that's the relationships that I had with people, whether that's just taking time for myself and being mindful, whatever that looked like, having those things and then pushing through and being like, all right, I'm gonna start fresh slate, I'm going to do better, both for myself and for the students, and having that openness and willingness to be just improving all the time really, really helped me a lot. Is there?
Yeah, I think it's also moments, like, similarly to Marcus, there were negative things that through the profession, through the job, started impacting my own self and self-worth. There were certain classes that I couldn't get in front of the room without having developed so much anxiety that my hands would shake constantly.
Yeah.
Or like, because you're trying to ingrain a pulse in the jazz band, I would wear my middle finger down to the point where I was constantly bandaging my hands because they were just bleeding. So that's when it gets started. And those are unfortunately the moments where we start to pay more attention to our bodies. Ideally, you want to come in and set a good, healthy boundary with yourself to know, leave work at work. And the things that we deal with sometimes are very difficult and hard, but if you know that there's an aspect of, yes, sometimes you're gonna take something home with you and it's gonna sit with you, whether it be a work thing or a kid talk to you, that's okay from time to time, but sometimes as much as you hate that Billy doesn't have a good home life, you come home and you make a good dinner and you watch TV because you have to be replenished enough for your students to then need you the next day.
And to kind of piggyback off that, something that I saw recently that really resonated with me was don't live your life like looking forward to the weekend. That's such a terrible, terrible way to teach and a terrible way to live your life. Because that was, for that first semester, that was how I was living. I'm like, all right, all I gotta do is push through 4 more days and then I'm at the weekend and I can relax and I don't have to worry about this anymore. And what I saw pretty recently was like, make sure that every day you do something that turns it into a good day. Whether that's taking time for yourself, whether that's like pushing yourself to get like that last bit of energy and do your dishes, or like whatever it is that's going to make it so that your life is a little more organized, a little more happy, a little bit more worth living. Like those are the things that you need to keep going. Does that kind of answer your question? Other questions before we run out of time?
So just to let everybody know, sign up, notify everybody for next Tuesday.